Hello, everybody. This is Aura Guardian. Um, Today I have a game against Stonewall. Looking at this board, I see that Asia has a plethora of bonuses to choose from. A lot of efficient bonuses in this region, and given the distribution of wastelands elsewhere, um, controlling Asia is going to be essential for winning this game. If I don't have a pick in Asia, my opponent will just simply out-expand me. So ideally, I pick two nice picks in Asia that go well together, and I think the best combo here ends up being Cheetah and Didinka. The reason I say this is that Cheetah sees West China, and the only other counter to Cheetah will be to prevent um, completion of East Russia will be Central Russia. So, um, I will go ahead and pick these two bonuses, first and second. In addition, these two bonuses also make for a fairly strong combination and allow for me to obtain 14 armies in 3 turns. Pretty standard. My third pick will be in Central America. It is a pretty safe bonus with expansion opportunities in East US and complements these two picks well. My fourth pick being Scott in Antarctica, which also has decent expansion opportunity into Australia, if need be, South Africa, and East Africa. After that, there isn't too many great pickings. I think Scandinavian Peninsula is alright. It's not as strong though as either Central America or Antarctica. As for a sixth pick can be just sort of a simple counter to the fourth or the fifth pick. For this instance, the easiest counter is going to be Germany in Europe. Um, I think that'll be the best approach here. So yeah, this is going to be my general picking strategy for this map. Guarantee coverage in Asia and try and spread about the rest of the map as best as the distribution allows. So turn one has progressed. We get our first, our second, and fourth pick, missing our third pick. We know our opponent is in Central America. So most possible is something like 11 and 2 or 10 and 2 or even going for um, 16 in 3 turns is a possibility here as well. That tends to be a pretty good way of going about picking. So a combination like Scandinavian, Central America, and East US is definite possibility here, or even Australia. So I think the worst case scenario is indeed seeing like a 16 and 3 and but as far as my opponent's income is concerned, but I should be alright here with a 14 and 3 type combo myself in play. I think the move here is going to be straightforward. We just go for a completion of East Russia, and that's essentially it. I can actually have one extra army to deploy um, elsewhere. So I can be pretty safe in grabbing Tasmania, thanks to that extra army to deploy, um, available for deployment. Um, and that is also beneficial to me if my opponent isn't indeed is not in Australia, then um, and not going after it first as his first bonus, um, then um, I still have three armies to grab, three extra armies to grab South Pole on the third turn, as I'll have 10 income, and it would only cost me 7 income of that 10 to complete Central Russia on turn 3. So I think Tasmania is actually a fairly smart decision to just check it out, see if my opponent's there, and have that one extra deploy in place from turn 2 if needed to guarantee a no capture of Australia. So I think that's the strategy I'll use here. Okay, that's definitely indicative that my opponent does not have Australia, which is a good thing for me. I can go ahead and uh, safely complete East Russia this turn, move my leftover back into Scott, and then prepare for a capture of South Pole and um, Central Russia on the next turn. Ah, my opponent made their move very quickly. That's very interesting. Well, I will go for completion of Central Russia this turn then, as per the plan. You can go ahead and take South Pole with 4 armies. That's perfectly fine. It might be a little bit more beneficial to maybe take Omsk, but I don't necessarily have to. I should start getting in position to make my way down for checks of East China, which would be a weird pick to combo with, but by on its own. But it's a good safety check to make sure my opponent isn't there, um, or if they are there, to engage them. So that's kind of what I will go with turn 3. Delayed attacks on Tomsk and Omsk uh, would be beneficial as well. In fact, I can actually get an extra delay by taking my leftover extra army from Scott and transferring it to Tasmania. So I'll go ahead and do that as well, just for good measure. And this attack is rather inconsequential, but that's fine too. Alright, so go for that 14 and 3, and then get 17 on the 4th turn, and if I still don't find my opponent, then Australia is mine on the 5th turn. So, my opponent still hasn't shown up on any of my borders, uh, which is interesting. I can start really narrowing down where my opponent could be. I don't see him in Brazil, I don't see him in South Africa, I don't see him in Australia. I don't see them in Caucasus. I haven't seen them yet in East China, so that's a distinct possibility. Um, I think given the distribution of the board and given where I haven't seen my opponent, the only reasonable places that my opponent could have started their picks was something like East China, Central America, and Scandinavian Peninsula. possibly East Africa. I feel like all those are like the more likely places for my opponent to be. Also, East US is also a likely pick. So it's probably safe to say that my opponent either has 15 or 16 income at this point, but won't be gaining income next turn. I think my play is just going to be to continue to expand and check out East China. Let's see if my opponent is there. Also, it would be nice to kind of start looking at Caucasus. But I think right now priority is going to be checking East China and seeing if my opponent presents himself there. It would be very weird for me not to see my opponent there, and the game would be essentially won in that instance. But we'll take a look-see and see if my opponent is there. Ah. Hello, opponent. You are indeed in East China. That double border presents a few problems. It could have been something like, what, 10, taking 10 on turn 2, and then 8. It requires 8 income to complete that. Honestly, my opponent probably took another territory somewhere. Well, I also missed my third pick. I know they're on Central America. They certainly have that completed. Okay, let's see. 11. 11. Complete this with 11, so 8. Requires 8 armies to complete this. Left you with 3, 5, 4, 3 into Florida. 3 armies into Florida. Deploy 9 here. 2, 9 here. And then take this, or 10 here. You deploy 10 here. Right? It's 10, 12, right? 11 to attack with 11. 10 of your, what is it? 10 of your 11, or what is it? 15? 3 plus 7. You need 7. 7. 17. My opponent would be 2 armies short, taking both Tennessee and Gulf Coast. Alright, I gave it a bit of thought. I think what my opponent has probably done is they probably completed East US first in 2 turns. Then they completed East China and took another territory in Central America. And then on the 3rd turn, they finished Central America. So 14, 15, 16, 17. They deployed 10 here, right? And 2 here. That would make sense. 3, 4, 12, 14. That's 14 is 17. There's additional extra territory to be captured somewhere. It would probably be Canada. Do have an idea of how to play this out. I need to in the case that my opponent did go after East US, Central, and Central America, or had East US as their third pick. In the case that my opponent had East US as their third pick, then West China is up for completion next turn. I do have to attack that, and completion of West China plus a break of Russia would be bad. So a token defense of East Russia is important here. And I don't think I'm really in a position to be able to easily break my opponent. So uh, I think the plan here is going to be to complete Australia and try and go and still go for that. Go for Hawaii first order, and just move towards my opponent's other source of income in Central America. I'll also try to go for this token type of defense, but I do not think that said token defense will work. Take Hawaii, go for California, go for a break of Central America, and work my way towards East China and using other approach. It's also could be worth it just to go for a token attack on East China to see if my opponent lets me capture it. Yeah, I didn't think my opponent would let me break. Okay. 21. So say they have 17. 3, 6, 10, 15, 16. Okay. 3, 5, 8. Yeah, okay. East US is their third pick. Also confirmed by a capture of Tibet. And probably one territory in Canada. This is a solid game then. I feel like my win condition ends up being quite simple. Although execution of it might be difficult. I need to get over to his income in Central America and East US. If I break Mexico on the same turn that my opponent breaks Central Russia, that's fine. But I need to be in a position where I can break Central America. And my opponent very clearly saw my move to Hawaii on this turn. My opponent is smart, they won't move from East China this turn. They'll probably very aggressively attack Western Siberia. My opponent has sort of priority this turn. They could definitely try and beat out an attack to California. In fact, they're probably quite motivated to do so. So I think the best thing for me to do this turn actually ends up being uh, the attempt to take back East Russia. I also have an order delay card. Plenty of delays to work with. It is worth trying. Can also attack Tibet with 2 armies. See if my opponent lets me do that. Okay, I can also attack Inner Mongolia with 2 armies. I can attack with Chita with 3. Finish with an attack of 14, because I really do expect some degree of defense over here in Mexico. So let's see how this goes. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's a really good move for me. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 13. 15, 16, 17 suggests a second territory taken in Canada. It's still very tight for my opponent. So I don't see an aggressive capture happening in Canada quite yet. Opponent did come to California and saw that opportunity to capture, but I did manage to use my order delay card to pull off a capture of East Russia. So, my opponent is under a lot of pressure to defend Hong Kong this turn. I think now is a good opportunity to capture California and start busting down this income house over here. I think an order priority attack on Shaanxi and deploying everything and else to Hawaii and going for the smash of California is beneficial to me. Should check to see if my opponent has used their delay card. This would be a good turn for my opponent to use their delay card if they haven't already. No, they have not. But that's fine. We can deal with that. But now's a really good time for me to prioritize a smash at California and start really breaking into this income on my opponent's income, because that's my goal. I need to get to East US. That's my win condition. So let's see how this goes. Alright, so his deploys were 8 to Shaanxi. He felt pressure to defend there. 6 to Inner Mongolia, that's fine. 1 to Japan. I capture Tibet. Let's see if he lets me keep it. Um, he used his order delay card. That's fine. That would be the turn I would expect him to use the order delay card. Okay. So, what is the next move here? I think I'm in a very good position. Currently have a stack on West US that's coming for, eventually to get to East US. Broke East Russia again, but, that's fine. Now that I'm in position in Shaanxi, I have this nice triple border. My opponent has order priority this turn. Also, I don't think, I don't think they've used their priority card. There's no visual indication, so that my opponent can have order priority this turn if they want to. Under a lot of pressure in East China and Central America, and I also have an opportunity to blockade Western Siberia. So I think that's what I end up doing. I'll retreat Cheetah to Western Siberia. And that should be a sufficient blockade. 5, 18, 19, 20, 21. Regardless, I just need to simply just out delay my opponent, and I should be able to guarantee a break of one of these um bonuses. Take southwest with 3 armies for good measure. And I'll capture Baja, try to capture Baja with 13 armies. I will try taking Jiangxi and then Beijing. Uh, Jiangxi with 2 and Beijing with 11. I also have an additional delay here. This delay of 2 was probably thinking maybe going into South Africa this turn if I needed it. But the turn's been going well, I might not need to expand there. So this is the kind of the play I'm going for. Start creeping towards East US more. Try and get into Central America. Try and go for a break of East China. Just, my opponent's under a lot of pressure, something should fall. Yeah, they could have. They attack with 17, but it's an inefficient attack for one, and why Xing is important to them when they're under a lot of pressure, I don't know. So this isn't a good move on my opponent's part, because I just end up breaking 2 bonuses, both bonuses instead of just 1. So my opponent just dropped to 10 income. I just don't need to play aggressively this turn. I can just more or less sit, right? Because he can deploy up to 15. I can more or less sit. I don't necessarily care at this point, although it would be really annoying if my opponent breaks Central Russia. I care more if my opponent goes for something like a completion of West China. So I'm going to play to frustrate that. My goal right now isn't necessarily to capture any more bonuses of his, just sort of to get a greater army advantage at this point, and um, essentially after I break both East China and Central America, the game is over. Let's see, what do we see? 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's all his income. Yeah, now's the time to surrender. Okay. Yeah, my opponent surrenders after this point. It's GG. Yes. So, as suspected, he did have some territories completed in Canada. I expected 4 territories to be completed here, but he completed 3. So yeah, he ends up taking a 3rd territory in Central America. And yeah, he ends up, this is where his extra income was. 10, 12, 14. Yeah, 14, yeah. So I ended up eventually figuring out that he was in East US and that he would have been. I think I had him figured out by turn 5, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that is me versus Stonewall. 10 turn game. Pretty straightforward fight. A little bit challenging with the managing the double border there, but we do eventually find our way to East China's double and get into California and just seal the deal because we were able to take an extra territory or extra bonus this game over our opponent, and in the long term that pays dividends for us because he has less safe income, especially once I get over into California. So GG, well played. Until next time.